Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today I want to take a little time and answer a question from a viewer. I get a lot of questions from viewers, especially during our live chats. I have a live chat every night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Mondays and Wednesdays when it's at 5 p.m. Pacific time. So I get a lot of questions there. If you want to come over and ask questions or just join in on the general fun, come on over. I'll put a link in the upper corner of this video to the actual live chat tonight. But with that being said, like I said, I get a lot of questions. Sometimes I don't get to answer all of them. In fact, usually I don't get to answer all of them. Well, I got one the other day that I didn't get a chance to answer that I wanted to do today as a video. And that question was, what is the biggest ripoff handgun on the market today? You know, the biggest just not worth it gun. Like a gun you're going to buy and you're going to be like, well, this was just a ripoff. Well, there's lots of different ways you can look at this. What's something that might not be worth it to me might be fine for you, or vice versa. But I'm going to try to look at this objectively and try to answer this in the best way I possibly can. Now, some people might think I'm going to say kel-tecs. Any kel-tec, not worth it. It's a ripoff. Like the new that new 50-round 5.7 that is a piece of junk. Well, I'm not going to say kel-tec, because even though I think kel-tecs are garbage, they're not really a ripoff because they're cheap. So you kind of know what you're getting when you buy them. If something's cheap, it's probably not the best thing. That's not always the case, but when it comes to mechanical things like guns, it's often the case. And in kel-tec, that's the case. They're bad, but they're cheap. So, and some people might think, well, that's fine with me. I might have to shoot it once or twice in my life and probably never any other time. So cheap, but will work for at least one magazine. That's good for me. So I'm not going to say kel-tec. Like I said, that's just, it's low-hanging fruit. It's kind of like high point. You know, even high points aren't a ripoff because high points are super cheap and they work really well. In fact, they're far better than a kel-tec. People ask me all the time, well, what's better, kel-tec or high point? Well, it's not even a question. A high point's better. They work. They're just ugly. So, you know, you might want to think another thing now. Another way to go with this would be like a gun that's just too expensive. Like a Korth revolver. Is a Korth revolver worth it? It's really expensive. And when you take it out in the field, is it better than a Smith & Wesson 686 Plus or 586 L-Comp? No, it's not. It's more refined. It's more mechanically sublime. But is it actually better? Are you going to hit your target better? Are you going to defend yourself with it better in a bad situation? Is it going to be more reliable? No. The 586 is just as good when it comes to actual performance. But it's not as refined as the Korth. It's not as precise as the Korth. It's not like clockwork. It's like digital clock versus old world Swiss watch. You know, that's the difference between the two things. Like one's a Timex that's going to work for you all the time, and the other's a Rolex. So they're actually worth it. If you appreciate that type of thing, things like Korth, they're just definitely worth the price because you know what you're paying for. It's like custom 1911s. You know what you're paying for. Can you get a 1911 off the shelf that would probably perform just as well? Yes, of course you can, but that's not what you're wanting. You're wanting more refinement. So guns like that, just because they're expensive, doesn't mean they're not worth it. Just because they're not functionally better than less expensive guns doesn't mean they're not worth it. They're very much worth it if that's what you're willing to pay for. So things like that, that's not the issue either. Now, another thing a lot of people think is engraved guns, you know, because a lot of guns, they make engraved models, and they're a little more expensive, and people are like, what, a ripoff, pay more. No, you're paying for something. You're paying for the engraving. It's really nice looking. So those are not ripoffs, because I've had a lot of people, you know, come at me with things like, this is a ripoff. In my years on YouTube, a lot of people are like, can you believe they want this much for this? That's a ripoff. Believe they want, it's not worth it. You know, it is worth it if you're paying for it. It doesn't qualify as being a ripoff or just not being worth it. There's really only one gun, and I own this gun. And I've not only owned one of them, I've owned multiples of them. I've owned two. That's a multiple, two. And the gun that I think is just not worth it, it's just not a good enough gun for what you pay for this gun, is the FN 5.7. The 5.7 by 28 pistol from FN. Now, I know 5.7 by 28 is really popular right now. And there's some guns that are really good that are chambered in it. Like, I think the Ruger 57 is far better. You get way more for what you're paying than the FN 57. I think it's more reliable. I think it feels better in the hand. I think it even actually kind of looks better. I think maybe the PSA has potential to be better than the 57, the FN 57. So the FN 57, you're just not getting anything special for that high price. I don't like the way they do the polymer cover on the slide. It just makes it feel cheap. It feels like a toy in your hand. The 57 round is not that impressive. It's not any more impressive than like 22 Magnum. So it's just not a super impressive round. And the gun holds 20 rounds. People act like, oh, that's what makes it special is it holds 20 rounds. Wouldn't you rather have 5.7s than 6 or 8 or whatever of another round? Maybe sometimes, but not always. I'd rather have much more effective rounds. I'd rather have 8 or 7 357 Magnum than I would 5.7s. But if you're comparing it to other rounds like 9mm, well, I can regularly get handguns that have 18 rounds in them from multiple manufacturers that are less expensive and better guns. So the FN 57, like I said, it's a very niche gun. I own one because I want that little niche gun. But as far as being worth what you pay for it and actually serving a purpose, I just don't think it does. I don't think it makes up, there's nothing that it does to make it worth the extra money. Now that you have other options like the FN and the PSA, etc., I just don't think it shines like it used to. And even back when it was new, I always kind of felt like I would rather have 18 rounds of 9mm than 21 rounds of 5.7, pretty much any day of the week. The 18 rounds of 9mm is going to do everything that FN 57 can do, and then some. It's going to have better penetration of hard barriers. It's going to just all kinds of things. I mean, I showed people the difference of what a 5.7 does against a cinder block compared to another round in a recent video. They're just not that impressive when it comes to penetrating hard barriers. They're fast and they penetrate well in soft tissue, but other than that, they're not very big. It's like getting shot, like I said, with a 22 Magnum. So, and they are very expensive. They are not a cheap gun. So I forget the exact price, but I remember they're pricey. So that's the gun that I choose for being a big rip-off. It's not because it's a bad gun. And it's not because it's, incredibly expensive, because it's expensive, but not super like Korth level. It's not because it's crap or anything like that. It's just because it doesn't really have a purpose and it doesn't do anything better than any other gun that you can get cheaper. So in my opinion, like I said, as far as the biggest rip-off or not worth it gun, and I've said similar before, it's still the FN 57. Hey everybody, just want to remind you, we are still selling the Waddle stickers. October is coming, werewolf season is coming. And as we all know, in October alone, every year between 0 and 25,000 people are eaten by werewolves. So you don't want to risk it. Get yourself a Waddle sticker, the Werewolf Anti-Defamation League. Put it on your car, put it on the window next to your door. That way werewolves will know that you're an ally and not eat you. And during the month of October, this is going to be an essential thing. They're not going to be on sale forever. So if you miss out, you miss out. You're just going to probably get eaten by a werewolf. So I'm doing everything I can to keep you from being eaten by werewolves. And in the time, helping fund the Pets and Vets program that took a big loss this year because of a big donation we made to a cat charity. And because of a mistake by Printify on our last fundraiser where they ended up costing the fund almost $2,000 because of the way they did shit. But that's what I wanted to let everybody know. We still got the Waddle stickers for sale. Go over and get yourself one if you don't got one already, because no one wants to get eaten by a werewolf. And with that said, I want to say thanks to everyone who came today. I do appreciate it. I hope to see you again tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the show. But until I see you again, I just want to remind everyone out there, always carry and stay safe until I do see you again.